All right, welcome to another episode of the Freezin for NFC North Podcast, episode number 25. We are back, division training camp storylines. This week we're talking about the Packers and the Bears. We are joined by guest Viking Dave. How are you doing?
Good, man. How you been?
I've been great. I am ready to get things going for football. Love, training camp stuff, but I'm just ready for action. And I know someone else who is as well. How are you doing there, Grubb?
I'm doing good, man. I'm good. Good to see you guys. It's been a good week. Hard Knocks started last night, and it was good. It was good. I don't know if you guys watched, but it was good.
So we'll have to get into that a little bit later because I don't have HBO, so I'm not able to see that. So we can definitely get into that a little bit. Was hoping to have Danny back. She was gonna join us back. She will be back in a couple weeks or maybe next week, so we'll kind of see about that. But we don't.
So are we just gonna diss the Packers without any Packers fans here?
We might have to. Yeah, we might have to kind of go them along a little bit.
Trash can now. It's a Packers trash can now.
It really is, and we might as well. We'll kind of wait on that. Let's just kind of get into some of the Bears stuff. And we're talking offline. I did get a chance to go to the Bears training camp, and it's. I went in 2019. It's a little bit different now. The area they limit the amount of people that are there, so you have to kind of order tickets, and there's a very small amount. So it is kind of a quaint little area. It was a fun atmosphere, although like right behind, the stands for the practice, the trains kept going, and it was kind of loud and whatnot. But it was interesting to see the players that close, and obviously there's a lot of storylines that are going on right now. I'll just kind of cede the floor to you guys on some of these things first, and then I'll give my takes from camp as well. So what are you thinking so far that you're kind of seeing in the media from the Bears, Grubb?
From the media?
Yeah.
Well, if there's one thing during camp and preseason football, everybody's great. That's all I know.
Mm-hmm.
But the outside media for the Bears has kind of been really skeptical. I think more than they should be. Inside camp, they've had a lot of receiver injuries, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
and so a lot of people are mentioning that right now. Guys getting dinged up, but that's camp. That's camp.
Mm-hmm.
Fields is going to look, dude, he's in his second year.
Mm-hmm.
He struggled last year reading defenses. He didn't get a lot of camp last year, right? Because Nagy was like, Dalton's my man. Right? I'm going with Andy Dalton, and that's what we're doing. And
I'm ready for. I'm gonna say I'm ready for him in Chiefs camp to say that who's the backup in Kansas City to say no, he's my guy, not Mahomes.
Yeah, oh yeah. You got Henne there, right?
Chad Henne, that's right. Yes.
Yeah. So, that's kind of where these guys are at. I think the Bears are. I think some of the guys are ahead of what they should be scheduled. We talked about this before draft. They've already got a talented defense. They're a young, talented defense. They're going to make their mistakes. Fields, he really struggled in the aspect of collecting himself when it came to reading the field pre-snap last year. He didn't have a camp. So this year he's going to struggle in some of these things when he starts. It's basically his rookie camp.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't get a full camp last year because, again, Nagy was so undaunted. So I think from the media, seeing what I've seen, there's a little bit heavy on some of the things, but there's some guys out there making plays. And I think, again, Fields, he's going to be – look, he has the chance to be special talent, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's got that skill set in him. Can he do it? Everybody's going to find out, right? This is how it is. I think there's been a lot of harshness come out of camp as far as national media. Obviously, we're not in – I don't spend my whole day in Bears media, but, that's the national media part of it is kind of like, oh, the Bears, they're, is this the right moves they made? Foles is an idiot, blah, blah, blah. Like, there's a lot of that. So, from an outside perspective, it doesn't look pretty, but man, this is football.
Yeah, and shout out to my guys at Tape Never Lies Network, and they've had people there every single day at camp, and obviously I was there as well. And we talked about the Bears and the offense has struggled a little bit in camp. Fields has, but yeah, it's hard to really get up, put a ton of stock right away on training camp stuff because they're learning, and that's what it's for. And part of it too, when you look at that, they're when they were struggling, they're getting new offensive linemen in there. Riley Reef is in there, and now Braxton Jones could be a great find on the offensive line there. And then also on the other end, the defensive line was really showing out as well. So that could be a positive for the Bears as well. And so when you look at that, I mean, there's a lot to like that way. Maybe not from wins and losses, but when you look at the development of some of these players, and you're right, it is important camp wise to have that time, when you can take your risks and when you can kind of learn this and that, and what's best in this new offense as well.
Well, we talked through that last season, right? Like Justin Fields, like on all the shows we did last week, right? Or last season, like there was a lot of stifling from Nagy, right? So it was tough for him to grow. And I told you guys that, though. I said, but sometimes even as a young quarterback, it might be better if Nagy stayed through the season, right? When we were talking about firing Nagy early. And I do think that was important for his development. And I'm telling you, this year it's going to take him some time, though, because he hasn't done this process yet in the position he's in. Mm-hmm. Right. It's easy to come into camp and last year he was basically the third guy when he came into camp, regardless of where he got drafted. Right. Mm-hmm. Nagy kind of treated it that way. So he didn't get just like this full load last camp. So he's learning, man. And he's going to make really bad decisions, even in one-on-ones. Right. Mm-hmm. He's going to make some throws but he's trying things and he's learning things. So come on.
Absolutely. And from a Vikings fan perspective, Dave, what are you kind of seeing and what are you kind of looking at when you kind of look outside in on the Bears?
I've never been a Fields fan. I think we talked about this last year. I didn't. Mm-hmm. I remember there was rumors the Vikings tried to trade up for him. I'm glad it didn't happen just because I didn't really love him coming out of college. Some people do. I mean, you can see the skills, but I mean, most first round QBs have the skills at some point. You can see it. Will he develop them? I don't know. I feel like the Bears. I think you even said this. They're in a transition year like this. Mm-hmm. You don't expect much. You know what I mean? I think if I'm a Bears fan, I would just love to see Fields get better. Like that's all you can really ask for. The defense is going to be, I think, pretty good, right? I mean, I don't think they're not bad. Except for the Roquan thing. Who knows what happens with that? But I mean, if I'm a Bears fan, I just want to see Justin Fields get better, and because that's your franchise. Because if he's gonna be great, you'd like to see it happen now. He's got to start somewhere. So yeah, I mean, I get he doesn't have all the greatest weapons in the world, but great QBs. Neither does Aaron Rodgers, and I bet we're all most people are picking them to be a playoff team at least. You know what I mean? And obviously, we don't expect him to be Aaron Rodgers, but you know what I mean. As a Vikings fan, I don't feel like the Bears are too much of a threat, and that's not me trying to put them down. I think realistically, I don't think they are. And like I said, if I was a Bears fan, I'm hoping Fields. I hope Fields doesn't do well, just because I don't want another good QB in the division that will have to play for years. So we'll see what happens. I don't think it's. For me in the preseason, I barely pay attention to my own team. I'm excited. I can't wait. It's funny because today on NFL Network, they had they did a thing. They were at Vikings camp, and I was really excited about it. I'm like, man, like I really can't wait for the season to start. But I don't pay attention to really any other teams. I just don't. Mm-hmm. So I see snippets here and there, but it's hard for me to say, oh, I think this is going to happen, or this is going to happen. But just as an outsider, I mean, if I was, I just would hope that Fields can develop and become something great.
So yeah, and there was basically a bunch of stats on next gen stats on ESPN about Fields, and this was the problem with Nagy, that they didn't really whether it's Fields or other players, they didn't really go to their strengths. And so when Fields on design rollouts in 2021 season, so drop back percentage was 6.9. He was ranked 20th. When there were design rollouts, he had a completion percentage of 77.8, tied for third in the NFL, passing yards per attempt 10.1. So he was, getting the ball out and, getting it downfield. Passer rating of 145.8. He was first. He was ranked first on design rollouts in 2021. So when you look at some of those things, some of his strengths, I think hopefully, and it seems like so far from what I saw that the coaching staff and with Luke Getsy kind of coming in that they're really going to take advantage of, his skill set. And I think that's what you need to do. And, and that is going to be important. That's what I'm going to be, looking for to see, does the offense do that? And part of it too, do they really, focus on the run? And last year that hard to do that. Because of the offensive line, and now they've kind of shored that up a little bit. Braxton Jones, they've got some good young linemen now, and we'll kind of see what the whole Tevin Jenkins thing turns out to be. But now they've got some veterans as well in, so they that's going to be helpful with in the long run, but even this year as well. So we'll see. But when I think about the Vikings too, I think of those receivers, and I think of the defensive backs, the rookie, and so it might be difficult to watch, initially, but part of it, I think, it'll be. I'm looking forward to those Bears Vikings games, maybe not because I'm thinking they're going to win, but I want to see, how the new defensive backs, how they, learn from a couple of the best receivers in the league, right, with the Vikings. So I think I'm looking forward to those matchups and just kind of seeing that development, because Fields is, really, when you talk about a franchise, quarterback is the most important position, but in this division, then defensive backs are important as well.
Well, this defense, we talked about that weeks ago for the Bears, right? I think I remember what show we did, but we were talking about Green Bay Packers versus Bears defense, right? And we were talking about who, and I said, it's more important for the Packers to have a better defense, but we all came to the conclusion that the Bears have an exciting young defense, and it's fast. Right, it's fast, and it's gonna have fun. Can they bring in the coaching and the strategy and in-game changes that have not been present over Nagy's time? Not just on the offense, but the defense was the same. The Bears could hold up things, but I don't think there was a lot of in-game adjustment to win games at the end of games for them, and that went for both sides of the ball. And so you have this young, fun, fast defense now, and is this coaching staff going to take advantage of that? I think that's where this goes, right? Like you're talking about, not just wide receiver development, but, these young DBs. But you also have a young linebacker core. You have some young defensive linemen. Like, you got it all going on in the Bears, and they're going to be a fun defense to watch develop. Obviously, in this division, as a Lions guy, I want to now start dominating this division. People are not talking about that, but I think they're not talking about that enough, right? I really don't. Like, people laugh, right, because it's the Lions. But you go back in the day and look at what happened. I don't want to say the Lions are going to become the Patriots of the early 2000s, right? But everybody laughed at the Patriots, right? And everybody kind of, the nation was kind of you're either a Raider hater or you're a Raiders fan, right? And so most people celebrated the Tuck rule back then, like, yeah, screw the Raiders, right? And then most people cheered for the Patriots. If they'd have known what the Patriots and their fans were going to turn into, they wouldn't have. So you never know where things are going to end up, right? The Lions, I don't think Jared Goff is going to be this franchise quarterback for the future, but they're dangerous this year, right? And so more dangerous than they've ever been, and in a while. Before they've had some offensive players, and you had Stafford and you had Megatron, and they were just a threat, right? So the Lions, this is a chance to come up on some of these guys. But the Bears, their defense, young, fast, fun.
And that's going to be important, when you talk about these offenses, because I've been on this train for a while, and probably making Dave smile, but I think the Vikings are going to win this division. But when you think of that offense, I mean, it's fast. I mean, new offensive, coordinator and all that. So that scares me. But when you talk about defense, I think the Bears defense, if they're going to win any games, if they're going to not be the picking number one in the draft, they have to have to do something, show some ability to stop some of these teams on defense. That's going to be important. And I really think we need to talk offenses. I mean, it's Jared Goff, but I think the Lions have more of a overall potent offense. I mean, yes, it's Aaron Rodgers and all of that, but when you think of all of the skilled players, it's just Vikings and Lions. I mean, it's hard to kind of argue with that.
Well, I don't think people are a little overlooking as far as the Lions go on offense is the impact that Swift is going to make.
Yeah,
I love
Swift. Is the offense is going to run through that kid, and it's think of the Titans. In my mind, I think of the Titans when they had Chris Johnson. Okay, and Swift reminds me of him, not in the aspect of straightaway speed, but the way he manipulates lines of scrimmages. And so I think he's going to really – the offense is going to run through him this season on there. So there's not going to be as much on Jared Goff's shoulders. Then you have a guy like Ross St. Brown, right? We've got this guy who is another special, talented skill, right? So I think early in the season, the offense runs, though, through Swift. It may expand as the season goes on. But the Bears, they can protect Fields that way too. And that's what everybody's – again, they have this fast, talented defense, okay? And once upon a time, the Ravens, with a guy named Ed Reed and Ray Lewis, just had this young, fast defense. Okay, well, nobody expected anything of them, and they became something different. Now, am I saying that's what the Bears are going to become? Not in this moment, but they've got this, especially with Smith there, they've got this real base that it could be special, and it could be young and special. So can the Bears pull that out on defense? Could the Lions pull out what we're talking about on offense? They could. Young, up and coming, with a quarterback who is a top draft pick in the NFL, who's actually gone to a Super Bowl and proved himself to be a starter in the NFL. So people can knock on Goff all they want, but the dude's still starting in the NFL, and that's, you take it with what it is with that, but that takes some skill too.
Yeah, and I like what Swan Song here says, some parallels with the Lions in 2022 and 49ers in 2019. That could be interesting because you talk about teams, the Bengals were a team that no one was, other than, Dan Orlovsky was, talking about. And every year it happens, there's a team that surprises, and no one will believe it's the Lions until they actually do something. But I do like what they're building. So is it possible they sneak into the playoffs? They can, it's right there. When you look at overall, here we go. Yeah. Swan Song also says Aidan Hutchinson, 2022, Nick Bosa.
Right.
And
could happen.
Aidan Hutchinson is such an interesting player there because, when you think of how talented he is, but I'm a Big Ten guy, I'm an Iowa guy, but it's a different, between Big Ten and in some of the SEC schools. It just really is, and it's hard to say. So it'll be interesting to see. I think he's going to be good, but will he be a bust? I don't know. I mean, I think you don't think so.
Look, that kid's not going to be a bust. So you can end that, and that's same with him and Penny Sewell are working against each other. That's what you aren't watching the Hard Knocks because there's something special brewing there, regardless of if you're a fan or not. You have those two working against each other in practice, right, making each other better already and talking about it. And again, the Lions have this young core, but we were on this with the Bears, and that's what I'm talking about. The Bears have this young core. And these two teams, you just don't know. Everybody's because Hard Knocks has happened, and the Lions have some talent and things, but you just don't know about. And that's why I'm not writing the Bears off. Right, Aidan Hutchinson, yeah, that's his deal. He's going to be good off the edge. I don't care. Yeah, you watch Hard Knocks last night. You know how they pump things up, but you watch this kid's technique, and you know me. I'm a guy who evaluates very well, regardless. Like, and I see this kid making, and I don't do it out of fandom. You know that. You're one guy who knows that. So I don't do it out of fandom. I do it out of just analyzing. Dude, he's got something special in his attitude. He's got something special in his moves. Look, that kid's going to be good.
Quick question here
the
on
Lions afford him in the future. Who knows, right?
Good question.
So may he be somewhere else in 4 years when some time comes? Who knows? But the kid is special now, right? And he will be.
Speaking of special, a quick question from Swan Song on Jameson Williams. What did you see on Hard Knocks? Are they kind of talking about timetables? It's still kind of, maybe.
Yeah, well, that's what they're saying. People, that's how it's been, is like late November, right? So, or not late November, but into November. And that's what we were talking about last week is this going to be, can he do the Odell Beckham, right? Can he come out where he's a rookie and he doesn't get camp and he doesn't get play? And can he come in and be that guy? You know me, and I even, I put this on Twitter earlier, and you guys know that, right? Like, I was on Pickens so hard, and I didn't think the Lions needed to trade up to get a special talent wide receiver, and I thought Pickens, at where they could have drafted him was the special talent out of this draft, and I've been on that since pre-draft. So can Williams come in and be that? He's supposed to be a special talent. Was he special out? Yes, absolutely. Special in college. So he looked good. How does he come out of this injury? How does he do, right? You hope that he comes out and explodes, right? And this Lions offense is very creative by that point in the season, because it takes some weeks to get into your pure creative offense in the NFL.
Yep.
So hopefully, yeah, man, I hope this guy comes out. But yeah, they're talking. If he's out that long, I really think you miss a rookie year in that, And so it's happened a few times. Guys come out of injuries. Like I say, Odell Beckham's the biggest one who came out and exploded. Right, he was like out week 7, 8. He had a couple of weeks in, and then all of a sudden, like, boom, he was on the scene at New York. Do I hope that from Jameson? Yes. You know what I mean?
Right.
But you just have to hope for that if you're the Lions. Was it a special pick? Everybody was excited. I agree. But you knew me. I was on hold the line at the end of the first round. And I think Pickens is going to be special. And so I thought you could get this special talent at the end without trading what they traded. But Jameson's here now, so I hope the best for him. I hope he comes out, like I said, I hope he explodes out of the tank like Odell Beckham did.
Well, speaking of exploding, and when I think of that, I think of the Vikings wide receivers. And so, Dave, when you think of, the Vikings wide receivers and their strengths, maybe put yourself in the shoes of the defensive backs that have to cover them. So, like, I'm thinking Kyler Gordon, I'm thinking Jaquan Brisker from the Bears. Like, how are they going to be able to kind of match up with those wide receivers? Because that's really, for me, that's going to be the key in that game, and just in this division to see them. So, what do they do well that the Bears are going to have to counteract with that?
Well, I think I try not. I'm a pretty big homer, but
yeah,
I don't want to be one. I think Justin Jefferson's the best receiver in the league. I think he's going to blow up this year. I think a bold prediction last week was he's going to get 2,000 yards. He's determined. He wants to be the best player. So, I mean, he does so much well. Like, he does everything right. Thielen is such a great route runner. So it's, I don't know. I can just tell you that I'm really excited for the offense. For me to sit here and say, what can the Bears do to stop them? I mean, there's ways. I'm not a defensive coordinator. I don't know what these guys are going to do. But I said the same thing last year about the Rams. It's like, how is Cooper Kupp open every play? And I'm hoping that that's the same thing with Justin Jefferson, which I think it can be, and I hope it can be. It's that not only is Jefferson really, really talented, Thielen's really talented. Cousins is a solid quarterback. You got a really good play caller, and I hope we'll see in Kevin O'Connell that when they put these guys in these positions, it's not all Cooper Kupp. Like, yes, I mean, he's the one out there to run the routes, but there's things that get set up there. They're not just, these DBs aren't dumb. They're not terrible. Like, they're pretty good. And, these guys are still getting wide open. So, coaching happens to help. So I'm hoping that if Kyle puts these guys in the right spots, that, they're in for a big year. For me to say, how can they stop them? I don't know what, I couldn't say that. I mean, that's hard for, I think it's hard for any team to stop these guys, hopefully.
Well, yeah, and when I was at Bears camp, they had Kyler Gordon, they had them, in one-on-ones going on with Darnell Mooney, and I've been one that's been skeptical about Mooney being a number one wide receiver, but he kind of has that look in camp, like he is doing some special things, and
he's made some amazing catches.
And I like his mentality, and that's kind of what you want. He doesn't have the height necessarily, the prototypical height, that you would want, but he has it, and that's something I like.
I'll have him talk to Steve Smith then.
I was just going to say something about Steve Smith.
Yes, that is. So I like that, now when you look at, the rest of the wide receiver crew, it's going to be interesting. Velus Jones Jr., he looks fast, and he is fast. Like, he was burning people, and he had to kind of wait on a couple balls, like kind of right in front of us. We're kind of, so that's going to be interesting. The biggest thing I think will be health, and I was really surprised too when I was there. Good old Equanimous St. Brown. He seemed to kind of not really be he was a little bit more timid when I was there. But really he's slated now. When you look at it, he's slated to be the number 2 wide receiver. So he's actually done well in camp the rest of the days. And so that'll be interesting to see kind of his veteran presence with that as well. And when you look at Cole Kmet, I mean, he's talking about at camp, he's a monster in person, just like his calves are like as big as my head. I mean, so he's a big guy. And he was making his soft, his hands were soft. He was making some really beautiful catches, so that's improved, I think. And the Bears are really going to need him to step up in their offense, really to help Justin Fields as well, just to have that kind of safety valve on offense as well. I think that's going to be important, going forward in this year as well. But the biggest elephant in the room kind of right now then is the Roquan Smith contract. And it's, I mean, we talked about it. It's tough that he's negotiating a contract on his own. I mean, you kind of, want to be able to, as a player, just separate from that, because it has to be emotional and has to be, you put all your heart and soul and everything into this, and then to kind of go and then have someone look at you like a business. But that's what the Bears need to do. I mean, long-term, they're not just looking at, I mean, he is a special player, but they're looking at long-term, the cap and everything.
Well, and they got to look at next season and the season after that, and what do they pay this guy? And it's tough, right?
It really is.
How are you, like, what is your opinion as like a fan? Like, it's got to suck to, like, one of your best players. I know when Denver Diggs, I didn't want it to happen. I was like, no, he's not going to get traded. And I was pissed when it happened, because he's one of my favorite players. Like, how do you feel about the whole situation?
I guess I'm a little bit removed from it, because, I mean, we talked about this too offline, is that I'm not expecting a lot this year. So, like, if I was expecting this to be a playoff team, and I might be a little bit more upset. And also you just kind of look at a lot of the how things go now in the media with players, right? This is how they negotiate, right. And so that could just be a tactic as well. They take to Twitter, they take down, they scrub their social media accounts, things like that. But Ryan Poles did say he expects to sign him to a contract. He does not expect to trade him, and you just never know. I mean, I think Roquan Smith wants to get what's best for him, and not having an agent, he is negotiating in the media. That's, trying to get everybody on his side.
Well, I think even with an agent, I thought about this after me and you kind of had a little discussion back and forth, private messaging earlier. I think he thought that's the move to make, I know that agents might do some stuff like that, but they wouldn't go on Twitter, right? The agents not going to be on Twitter, but they would say that to the team. And I feel like since he said that out of his own mouth to the team already, he didn't have any other option, right? And this is the problem with not having an agent, right, who does the speaking for you. Once they basically told him, hey, these are the type of deal you're looking at, and he didn't like that, he didn't really have any, because usually an agent is the middleman, right? Then the agent goes in and he wheels and deals, and so does the team, and they got people who are taking care of their finances for the next 7 years that they're looking at going, hey, we got to break it down like this right now. So he doesn't have that experience, right? He's also young in the NFL. So, I mean, he's a young player. So, I hate when these guys leave it up to themselves and their uncles. Do I like agents? No. I think they ruin a lot of the game as far as a fandom, right? We lose our players every year. Like, Dave's over here talking about Diggs. Like, that's all agent stuff, right? Money, like the agents really push that. So that part drives me crazy. However, you do need somebody who understands the finances and contracts of the game and a PR agency to be out there for you.
Right. Yeah, and Swan Song, I agree it is a mistake if they don't get something done.
Yes.
But it's also, a mistake if they just say, here, back up the truck for him. They have to.
They can't do
the
that.
Whole thing, and
they can't do that.
Honestly, as a Bears fan, Dave, you had asked, if I was upset, and it's hard to get upset for one player now if it's not the quarterback. That is the piece. You do need a quarterback on the defense, right? And but maybe this is a controversial opinion. I think it's easier to find a quarterback on the defense than it is for a quarterback on the offense, right?
Well, in the NFL, you have much more options in the NFL.
Exactly. It doesn't always have
at
to
defense. You have safeties and other linebackers and defensive linemen that can be the quarterback of the offense, and usually it's a safety now coming in there that's smarter, that can start doing that. Not your starting safety per se, but guys that are kind of a hybrid.
Yeah.
And so I don't think, that's the unfortunate thing. And that's why I think Smith has got himself in a little bit of trouble there, because
he is. And that's the thing. Like,
you're not quite as like a running back status right now, but linebacker, with the way the NFL is changing, linebackers just not as, I would say, where you're going to go after the big money like a running back can't anymore. Back in 10, 15, 12 years ago, a running back asked for the juice. You know what I mean? Receivers got some secondary money, and the running backs got the juice, all the way till about 12 years ago. And I think it's kind of the way on the defense right now. Like, you're looking at safeties and cornerbacks and defensive ends. They get the juice. They get the money. And your stay-at-home linebackers, even though he's special, the kid is special. They just don't get the money, and I think he thinks, that's why you need an agent that goes in and negotiates. He's going to get you a big contract. So I think that's what he's missing right now.
So Swansong has an interesting point here. And if you don't pay Roquan Smith, then current and future players won't trust the organization. I don't know about that.
I don't know about that either.
Because I think most of them now have been educated enough to know that it's a business. And the smart ones, obviously I get what Roquan Smith is trying to do. He's trying to get all his money, but the smart ones, find the right agent that's not going to screw them over long term.
Man, you got Drew Rosenhaus or these guys as your agent. You don't have to worry about it, and it doesn't even matter. Again, this is kind of like so the NFL. If you're in the NFL, if you're on a 53-man roster, you're special. I don't give a shit what position you play and on what team you play. All of us that are sitting around here talking whatever we say, every single one of those dudes would embarrass us at any moment on any play. So, they're special. Well, same thing with the agents. There's a reason they're there, right? They've worked. They know the contracts. They know the owners. They know the GMs. They know these guys. They're in the circles. They're working their deals. They're going to the parties. They're going to the things. They're networking. Like, they get the job done. That's what they do. And then they have marketing and PR agencies that are connected to them that do that for the players. And if you're a player and you want to build a brand and you want to make $100 million in this league, you got to have all that together. It's just how it works now. And I understand what he's trying to do. but it's just a young guy who's not seeing the business aspect of it, just like you're saying, man.
Absolutely.
He's just not seeing the business aspect of it, and it's not his job to do that. He shouldn't. Right. So I think it's going to cost him in the long run as far as not just money, but his abilities on the field. Because if you're having to concentrate, like what if this stretches out into seasons into the week, right? Yeah. And he's trying to negotiate deals for himself, but also learn, the game plan for the week. Like, how does that all play out? Like, he can't be doing that stuff.
Absolutely. We'll talk about something playing out as well. And this comes to the my favorite part of the show tonight, where three non-Packer fans talk about Packer training camp storylines, and we just kind of pile on. Invited Joseph Podcast to join us. Hopefully he can as well. Comments as many too as we can get about Packer stuff. But Dave, start us out here on Packer stuff.
I mean, again, like I said, I'm not paying much attention to them. I know they got no receivers. I know that they're going to finish behind the Vikings in the division, and that's all I really care about. So I really haven't paid much.
Shit. Thanks, sports and shit.
That's Joseph Podcast. So he's gone to bed for the night, which I think we can say that the Packers are going to be put to bed this season by the Vikings.
Well, here's the deal. Going into this offseason, we didn't have any problem having, let's say prior to the 49ers game and a little bit after, we didn't have any problem getting any Packers guests on here and getting people on here, right? All of a sudden?
Yeah, you can't get none of these guys to come on and represent their team.
They won't even come back. They got embarrassed by the 49ers, and none of them will even come on the show and talk.
Tell you what, I think we've got Danny in the show. Will be coming back hopefully this season, and we've got some others coming. But really, when you look at it, there are a lot of question marks when you talk about the Packers. That offensive line is hurt, and what's the latest on Bakhtiari? I think talking with Average Cheese, Dale over there, and other Packer. I mean, it's a really question mark. He could be out, 10 to 12 weeks this for the season.
That's big.
Did you see the video of him the other day running at camp?
I didn't. Did it look bad?
You see that? Oh man, like I wouldn't say laboring. It just looks like almost a like it's who he is now. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you're laboring on a run, right? But he's a big dude. So it just looks like his and maybe he recovers from that, but I don't know. It's been a long time.
So he's been
recovering for a long time, and so
I joined.
It just didn't look good with him running and now the Packers posted it as an exciting thing because he was running, but if you watch it from an observer's point, you're going, dude, that dude's still kind of laboring.
Mm-hmm. And that, I mean, as much as, and I listen, living here in Wisconsin, I hear a lot of the Packer radio and things like that, and they talk about, the wide receivers get a lot of the publication about people being worried about, but the offensive line that's going to be huge, and that could, they talk about how Rodgers does not like pressure up the middle, and with that, that could be
neither do 31 other starting quarterbacks.
True. Yeah, I mean, that's true. And so that could be, if he's kind of on the run there, I mean, that could be tough. Got my guy Silverado Kev, Green Bay Friday for preseason and Chicago week 1 regular season. Yes. Absolutely. Appreciate that. Silverado Kev. That's going to be an interesting thing too. Obviously we think about, this Friday preseason doesn't mean anything, but it does, just some players trying to make training camp and really kind of overall, it's ready for the Jordan Love hype train here as well.
Preseason, now that they've cut back on the games and they've made this, so much more emphasis on the joint practices and these things. Preseason camp doesn't mean as much. I always laugh during camp week because every receiver in the NFL, whether they got drafted or they're undrafted free agents and they make a catch and all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, Is this guy making the team? Look I can't even believe we got this guy undrafted free agent. So there's a lot of that in camp. But once this week starts, we're in a different world. The pads are on, and it's become more important now. It really has. Last offseason, you could kind of see that. Teams that started off not knowing where they wanted to go during the preseason really struggled early in the season. The reason the Bengals didn't have anything to lose. And they came out early in the season and were just prepared to play football. They prepared themselves through the preseason in a shorter time, and they actually came out ready to play football. And everybody was blown away because of that. And if you start the season now, basically, I wouldn't say on fire, but you start with a good preseason, it means more. Because before, it became this monotonous thing until last season. It was like you go in, this game, the guys play like one possession, right? Like the starters play one possession on the first week, and then it's a quarter on the second week, and then it's maybe somebody plays on the third week, and then the fourth preseason game they play a half, right? That was like and it just got in this monotonous tone. But now they're having to tone it up, and they're having to play these guys in bigger, longer joint practices, right? They're not just having a day or two of joint practice before a preseason game, where they're out there having to interact with these things. I think preseason is going to show more than it has in the past. It did last year, and I think even more this year. Guys who are doing good in camp, like before, it used to be a joke, kind of like I was just talking about, right? But now in preseason, if a guy's doing good, Green Bay, they've got Dobbs. He's really looking good at receiver right now. They're obviously the first round draft pick. Well, he hasn't been out there, right?
Yeah,
so
he
hasn't, or I guess not first round draft pick, but
Christian Watson has not. Yeah, he's been injured,
so he's not out there and he's not playing. So Dobbs is getting a little more looks, right? But preseason does mean a little more now. And even I see up here Jordan Love on the screen, right?
So and that'll be, I mean, we're not afraid. No one in the division is afraid of Jordan Love. If it something happens with no one is afraid of him.
But this is where I talk about preseason being more important.
Yep.
Obviously this season, but for that guy in particular, this weekend and next weekend are going to be very important to his future, I think, in Green Bay.
Well, maybe not even in Green Bay, but even in the NFL.
I think NFL, but I really think Green Bay. He's going to have, even though they're preseason games, they're going to be pretty important to that kid. So, preseason means a little different to some of these guys now, whereas it used to be longer and drawn out. And there wasn't as many guys on the roster to start with. Now, all of a sudden, you got all these guys competing. There's another mix. There's people standing out that were undrafted or not drafted, and they're getting more playing time than guys who maybe even you thought were roster spots already this season.
Yeah, so the biggest thing is, and I therefore out though Dobbs trying to workshop that what a nice call would be for Romeo if he actually made a catch this year. But when you look at it, that's the big hype. Oh, he's making all these catches, and that's what Aaron Rodgers is saying, and that's what you want him to say. All these things kind of come out of camp, and when you kind of think back, because obviously Justin Jefferson, was a highly thought of wide receiver coming out of college. When we think of Adam Thielen, do you remember, Dave, kind of when he came out and was kind of first in camp and starting to emerge? Do you kind of remember that at all?
So what I remember about him originally was he was a special teams player. I remember he was on the punt team. I remember he blocked the punt one time and turned it for a touchdown. And that's the only time I ever thought anything. I was like, oh, he's just a guy. He's a special teams player. And then it was probably, I'm trying to think what year it was. I remember, what year it was? It was the year that we drafted Treadwell, maybe like 15 or something.
Quan Treadwell.
And and he obviously was a bust. Obviously we didn't realize it. We had Diggs and I think we took Diggs the same year, the next year. Either way, I remember the talk about Thielen, and it was like, is he really gonna he's just been a special teamer, but he started balling out. And it's like, okay, like now we notice him in the preseason, and then he comes on and he's actually really, really good in the regular season. So I guess you got to start somewhere. You know what I mean? He made his team, and he was an undrafted free agent and all that, so it's a little bit different for him. But I remember when he was a nobody, just trying to get on the field, and then now all of a sudden, obviously, he's a star. So it happens.
So that's what when I talk to a lot of Packer fans, they're like, "Oh, we'll be fine," But when you look at some of these receivers, they're expected; they have to step up. When you look at Thielen, he didn't have to step up. He has Stephon Diggs, but they have to. And so that's what and I always try to pride myself on being an honest Bears fan. With my team, and I think you have to, because looking at the Bears, is it possible that Justin Fields is a bust? Yes, it is, because he hasn't quite done it. I don't believe that yet. He showed a little bit last year, but he did show something in a regular season game. And to your point, Grubb, it's camp. Everybody's going to look good in camp on one-on-one. So you're going to have this Dobbs and so you're going to have that, and more so now with social media, it gets out there.
There's probably from every team, there's probably 5 guys from last season, and I bet if we rewound the tape, you'd be like, this guy is so amazing. This camp is, and you don't even remember his name now, and it's been a season for your own team.
Yeah,
for your own team. Like that's how camp goes. They're very special, and you're like, and then you get drawn into them. Where like right now you have Hard Knocks with the Lions, so there's going to be more national people even get drawn into players' stories, right?
Yeah,
and they're going to be blown away when the guy gets cut. But it's just the nature of this business. And Thielen, I like what Dave said. I mean, that was that guy in particular, like Justin Jefferson. Everybody was like, this is a special talent, right? So at least I thought that way when he was coming in. Some people might not have, but I don't think he had as hard as camp and hard as route as Thielen did. Whereas Thielen was like this guy out of nowhere who nobody expected anything from.
Yeah, I mean, he was undrafted, so I mean, you didn't expect anything from him. He literally started, like I said, special teams player. He just wanted to get on the field. He was, running down, gunning on a punt team. Like I said, he blocked the punt. I remember it was a late December game. Teams we sucked that year. He blocks a punt and returns it for a touchdown. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And then the next year he's, the wide receiver 4, and then he's the wide receiver 3, and you're like, he's making plays out there, you know what I mean? So he had a lot harder than a guy like Justin Jefferson, obviously.
So this is my point then, getting back to the Packers wide receivers. We got Alan Lazard, he's kind of, worked his way, but, up, but he hasn't really proven it. Last year, 2021, 40 receptions, 513 yards and 8 touchdowns, 12.8 yard average. So, he's immediately right now the number 1 wide receiver. There's a lot expected, yeah, good.
He's not obviously going to be Adams. I think that's the problem in the NFL, right? Like Gronk leaves the Patriots, and whatever tight end goes to the Patriots, everybody like in fantasy football thinks this is going to be like dude,
same
Gronk
guy.
was Gronk, and Adams is Adams, man. Like so, yes, did Rodgers make him look good at points? Yes, but he made Rodgers look good at points. There's times where Rodgers was in trouble in the pocket a lot, and that dude got open for him to throw him a pass. He didn't just stand around. They worked together on that. So I know Lazard. Lazard's hands are top notch. Lazard can go up over. Look, his best moments are a high point ball catcher. He's not going to run routes like Adams. I'm sorry, he's not. His body doesn't move that way. He doesn't run that way. So he's never going to be that guy. Never. He doesn't have the skill set in his hips and legs to be that guy. Can he be a great possession receiver and somebody Aaron Rodgers relies on? Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what he's going to have to be this season. And you're going to have these special plays come from these young guys, but you're going to have to also have some of the, can Sammy Watkins stay on the field?
No.
Can
Right.
Randall Cobb stay on the field? Well, we know that, right? Neither
Right.
one of them can stay on the field, Cobb or Watkins.
And
But
even Christian Watson hasn't either been on the field, so that's already
You know,
He's behind.
we don't know how special he's going to be, and he's going to be a development anyway.
Mm-hmm.
He's a development player anyway. You drafted him on his talent. He's from a smaller college. He hasn't played the big boys, right? Like that's the way that it is. He's going to have, and he hasn't had camp or these things develop, so he's not going to come in and be this special talent right off the bat. He's going to have a big learning curve in the middle of the season to have to learn from as a rookie.
So I got killed on Twitter because saying that Kirk Cousins is going to have better stats than Aaron Rodgers this year, and it's funny because you can look at that in a few different ways, and some people say, "Well, you're saying Rodgers or Cousins is better than Rodgers." No, absolutely not.
No,
I do like Cousins, but I like Cousins' weapons a heck of a lot better than
the entire offense.
Exactly, and that is why. And I think it's going to be.
Everybody's talking about Packers wide receivers, but not many. Even though we started this show this portion with Packers offensive linemen.
Exactly.
That's, to me, that's going to be the biggest issue in Green Bay, right? So I don't know, man.
And they got a tough schedule too. So what's that?
Right.
So it's easy, when you've had so much success with a quarterback, just to kind of assume, oh, we're fine. We're going to, we got Super Bowl aspirations. It's going to be a dogfight. If the Packers do well, in my opinion, it's going to be on the defense. And,
right.
Obviously they upgraded, the defense, but it's going to be young. And, we all know that the Green Bay defense has been a joke for many years. I mean, last year, was that an outlier?
No, we talked about this before too. Like, I don't think so. I think this defense is good.
Yeah.
And we talked about it pre-draft. Like, they're going to have to rely on that defense this season more than they ever have, more than a Rodgers team. But I kind of hearken it to like Favre when they had Reggie White, right? You gotta. It's kind of like that time for Green Bay. Like, your defense has to step up. You're gonna have a different offense, and Rodgers is gonna have to, I think, be more Favre-esque this year than he's ever been. I think he's gonna have to make the plays with his legs and crazy arm throws and be that backyard baller like we were seeing from Patrick Mahomes, right? But I think with the offensive line, the weapons he has, Rodgers, I told you guys this going into this before the preseason. Aaron Rodgers would be my MVP vote immediately if they pull off a great season with the weapons and the offensive line that they have. That means he was spectacular.
Fair. Yeah.
He is going to have to be spectacular, and so is that defense.
Well, yeah, and we talked about the Bears' young secondary. Dave, are you worried at all about this secondary against the Packers secondary against the Vikings receivers? I mean, you got Stokes, Amos, Savage, and Jair Alexander. Are you worried about them at all?
Well, I mean, Alexander's great. He's a great player. I'm not gonna say he's not. The other guys are okay. But that's the chess match. That's there's going to be team. Alexander's going to win one. I feel like Jefferson's going to win more than he loses. And like, you know what? Let's line up and go do it. I think the Packers have a solid defense. I don't think it's great, but I think it's very good. I feel like, and I know they didn't have him last year, but I think Zadarius Smith's a big loss for them. That guy can rush the passer, when he's healthy. So we'll see what happens, how their defense plays again this year. Can they do it? The thing is, what if the Packers' offense isn't moving as much as as in the past? Now the defense is going to be a little bit more tired than they were. That people don't think about that. That can hurt them and hinder them a little bit. So if you have a few more 3 and outs, and defense has to go right back on the field, maybe they gave up a drive that they otherwise wouldn't have. So. We'll see. We'll see. I think that, but their defense is solid.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of look at it overall. I mean, they did get younger. Quay Walker, should be a great talent, for them. I mean, that'll be the thing, and I think in the NFL, the way things are going, you have to have that solid secondary to match up with the way the offenses are going now.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So overall, Packers, we kind of have gone, back and forth, and Grubb, do you still think the Packers are going to win the division? Are you still kind of there?
I do. Again, man, I'm not going to take away from Aaron Rodgers' skill set. I'm just not. And his ability during the regular season. But and people want to knock the playoffs, that's fine. Playoffs become matchup football, and different things happen. So different teams match up against different teams. Had they not faced the 49ers when they faced the 49ers last season, it would have been different, man. If the 49ers didn't win their first round game, everything, I bet you the Packers went to the Super Bowl. That 49ers team, which I had told you guys, I was like, that's the worst nightmare for the Packers, and it happened.
Called it. Yeah.
But I called it even the week before. I was like, look, the Packers are going to roll into the Super Bowl unless this happens. And they had to play the 49ers. So playoff matchups are different than anything, and especially with the weather they played in that one. However, regular season, he's tough to beat, man, and he comes out with attitude. And he's in the Bears telling, who's your daddy, and I own this team, and he plays with a different attitude. If he played the problem I think for him is if he played the Bears or Vikings to go to the Super Bowl, he might win. Because he plays with this chip and this attitude on his shoulder. When he plays, there's just something about it when he doesn't play a team that he's like that interested in beating. It's just something about it.
And it'll be interesting to see if the same thing happens. Will he point fingers? And you kind of see that a little bit. And Joseph here, Sportsmanship says, no one's scared of Love. Yeah, what QB2 is anyone scared of? True.
Well, but when it's supposed to be the next guy, like people were a little worried. Like people knew, like Favre was out of there. Okay, Andrew Luck. They got rid of Peyton Manning, right? If they're getting rid of Peyton Manning and they're getting rid of Favre and they're getting rid of Joe Montana for that next guy, then that next guy's pretty scary. However, nobody's getting rid of Aaron Rodgers for Love. Like there's no love story here so far, right? Like when Rodgers took over for Favre, they were talking about Rodgers through the first 2 seasons in camp. They're like, when are they going to let this guy have the reins? Like, right? He looks special behind Favre. And even Favre said he went into these preseason games. Brett Favre himself has said that. And he's like, I knew this kid was special, right? Like, you don't hear anybody saying that about Love, and that's the problem. So, no, can you fear Love? But you don't hear anybody going, oh, well, he is definitely the replacement. As soon as Rodgers decides, Love is the guy. You don't hear that. Like, you don't hear that. And it doesn't come from inside Packers camp, and it doesn't come from anywhere. So normally there are some guys to fear that are number 2s is where he got drafted for the reason he got drafted. But no, not him. No, not as a number. And most number 2s in the league, right?
Well, and here, Joseph also says here, that's Love gets all that, hate is number 2, but that's because he was drafted to be the next guy. And I think, Packer fans have been spoiled to have, these back-to-back, generational quarterbacks. And
49ers got that right with Montana and Young, and Packers got that with Favre and Rodgers. But I don't think it's going to be Rodgers to Love. I don't. I really don't.
And, as a Packer fan, because I get it, as a Bears fan, you want to believe these things. You want to believe the Packers want to believe Dobbs is going to be as good as he is in camp. You want to believe that. I want to believe, Velus Jones Jr. is that fast. But you have to see, you have to prove it. And Jordan Love did not prove it versus Kansas City. He's
had starts, and he's had preseason games where he's playing against third stringers.
Yep.
And he hasn't looked good then either.
Nope.
So that's a problem. Like if you can't go in in week one of it. Like if he goes out this Friday, it's Friday, I think they play, right?
It is. Yep, Friday. Yep.
If he goes out then and he looks like garbage against these guys who aren't going to be on the team next week, then there's a problem. I mean, and it's already a problem, but now there's like a full-on, four-fire alarm because, like, dude, if he can't do it, it's been years, and if he can't do it in preseason week one, having some starters play with him intermixed, and him not come out and produce anything, man, if I'm the Packers, I'm like, look, Rodgers is it, and then we're looking elsewhere. Like Love is the backup for now, emergency, just in case.
And I think he's only got a couple more years on his contract or what, so he's not necessarily
going to be around. Contract yet, and they'll release him. It doesn't cost them anything. So
and when you look at the quarterback position, you want them to just be able to have kind of be that guy, and when I look at Love, it is almost reminiscent of Trubisky, talented player, but just didn't have that that edge to
I think Trubisky, I think he's going to look good for Pittsburgh. I think he got when he went to Chicago, he had the Nagy effect, in my opinion.
Could be, yeah.
And he wasn't taught how to be a leader. Like when you come into the NFL, sometimes you have moxie, but you also have to be taught how to be a leader in some of those roles. And I don't think he had that there. But when he went to Buffalo, I think he had this lesson last year. And so he's come out in camp. I'm not saying he's like a superstar quarterback, but he looks a lot better than he did when he was in Chicago.
That's true.
And but Love, you don't see, that's what I say, like you don't see anybody going to bat for him. You don't see the offensive linemen or even the second team receivers going, oh man, this guy's got the ball, he's got the leadership. Like you don't hear any of that. And that's
right.
I mean, hell, in Washington, you got people talking about Howell, right? Sam Howell. And they're they're loving his leadership qualities, right? And this kid already has special arm talent. People were just worried about some things as he came out. But that's a dude that went way later in a draft, and people are talking about more about him in Washington than anybody's talking about Love positively in Green Bay.
Right, absolutely. And I mean, yes, you think of like the second string quarterback. There's not much expected of them this year, but when they're expected to be the next guy up, I mean, even like when you think of with the Vikings, right? Kirk Cousins is the guy. I mean, they had who was the other guy that they brought in from
Kellen Mond last year they drafted.
Kellen Mond, right? Everybody was talking like, oh, they're gonna by next season, right? Kirk Cousins, like. I had people in Dynasty Fantasy they're like, oh man, you take Cousins and I'll give you Mond, too. And then next year you'll be, and I'm like, that's a bozo move, man. Like if Kellen Mond was the guy, he'd already be the guy. Like that's the thing. Like doesn't mean he's necessarily going to start. They're like, oh, we got Cousins for this contract, just like Favre, just like this guy, like we got this contract, right? It's happened to Joe Montana. Steve Young was ready a year before. But Joe Montana had the contract, so he stayed one more season, and then Young became the quarterback. Like you just don't hear that about these guys going on. Kellen Mond is not going to replace Cousins. If he was going to do it, this would have been the offseason that probably happened, right? Like if Mond was the guy.
Well, yeah, you think of like quarterbacks that are like controversial. I mean, within the Viking fan base, Kirk Cousins, it seems like you either love him or you hate him. And, this was the opportunity, the leadership when they, is this the guy? Can he, is he good enough to get us to where we want to go? And, or do we have someone waiting in the wings that it with where the Vikings are at, it made sense, from an outsider to go with Kirk Cousins and not, I mean, obviously,
hey man, I'm over here at the Lions. Like Jared Goff is the guy. Okay. Right now, Jared Goff is the guy. There was no quarterback coming out of this year's draft that was going to outdo Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins, even Justin Fields. Like literally there's no quarterback that was going to start this season off as a rookie that's going to outdo those guys. So what's the point of drafting one, right? So like for these teams, and like Kellen Mond, he came last year, but he's not there to replace Kirk Cousins, I think fans get so excited about things when they see some talent early, right? And they're like, yeah, this guy's good. Well, hell yeah, he's good. Like I just said, if you can make a 53-man team in the NFL, I don't care what your position is, you're special at it. I don't care if you're the third string quarterback. You're more special than 99.9% of the world at this sport. I don't care. So, yeah, is Mond an amazing quarterback? Yep. But is he an amazing quarterback at the NFL level? Probably not. And that's just where it is.
Is that what you're thinking, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, well, yes, because like you said, there was no QB. You got to think about it, the new coaching staff. They don't know Mond. You know, I'm sure that some of those guys scouted him a little bit, but they don't know, what they have in him. So you're not going to just get rid of Cousins on a whim. There's nobody else to draft. So the smart thing to do is bring back Cousins. He is your best option. See what you have in Mond, or, see what you have in Cousins. Say, okay, this is our guy. Or, okay, no, we don't want to get rid of him in a year. But you have to, look at it. So, yeah, I mean, Cousins is the guy. Mond is going to, he's a development guy. He's probably going to be a career backup, which is fine for him. Like you said,
right,
good for
exactly.
him.
That makes him special, though, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean,
so I'm kind of the same way. Like, I don't expect much from him. He was kind of a development guy anyway. So it's not like he was going to come in and start right away in a year or two. He kind of needed to develop. So I don't expect much from him. And that's just kind of what it is. So.
Well, this has been great this week, guys. I think, next week and in weeks to come, we can maybe kind of look at some fantasy perspectives from each team and, kind of projections, things like that. And obviously more camp stuff. Hopefully, we'll have some Roquan Smith news soon either way. But this has been a blast. Where can everyone find you, Dave?
At Viking Dave 18 is my Twitter. I also host a fantasy football show, OUS Fantasy Football with Josh. We just had our show right before this. I ended 10 minutes before I hopped on with you. So we do that. You can find us, and you need fantasy football tips, come see us.
Absolutely. And where can everyone find you again, Grubb?
Obviously, Twitter, here on this show. Again, my show will be kicking off probably again here soon. So you can find me on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcast, all those type of things. And before I go, I mean, we didn't get much into Hard Knocks, but I got a Dan Campbell quote from Hard Knocks, which I loved, which was, "I'm coming after you, even if you've got one ass cheek and 3 toes, I'm kicking your ass." Like, I love it. Like, I mean, come on, man.
That's what you want to hear. Guy. Yeah. I mean,
that's a team speech. He's
really
coming for you. He's pulling you into the abyss.
Yep.
Whether you've got one ass cheek and 3 toes, he doesn't care.
That is what you want to hear. Well, and I am NFL Outdated. You can find me on Twitter, on YouTube, and maybe eventually we'll do a little bit of TikTok. We'll see about that. But we'll catch us every Wednesday, 8:30 CST. Rain or shine, we are here and ready to banter with the division NFC North. Thanks again, everybody. Have a great night.
Thanks, man.
Have a great night, guys. Good
Bye,
seeing
guys.
you.